What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Last Call. I'm your host, Dylan Clemons, here with me, as he is most Sundays, is Michael Plant. What's up, fella?
Not much, not much. Just enjoying another day of football. I'm grateful for us having it while we have it.
Yes, sir. Only a few more weeks of fantasy football. Unfortunately, I can't believe it's already almost up. But please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel if you don't already. But without further ado, we try to keep this one short and sweet. Let's jump right into the games, guys. And the first game we're going to talk about is the Washington Commanders beating the Atlanta Falcons 19-13. Taylor Heineke, if you were in a pinch and started him, you're a little bit disappointed with just the 12 fantasy points. He threw 2 touchdowns. If you happen to start Brian Robinson, it was a good day for him. His first career game of over 100 yards. He also found the end zone and ended up finishing with 20 and a half fantasy points. Antonio Gibson, if you started him, it was a little bit of a nightmare for him. He didn't quite have a good day, only 8.4 fantasy points. Terry McLaurin also disappointed, and it was John Bates who caught the touchdown. Shout out to Davis Pang. I know you were doing circles around your house when he scored the touchdowns.
Big time.
Jumping over to the Falcons side of things, Mariota had a Mariota day, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, did a little bit of running. Ended up with 15 fantasy points, so he didn't kill you. Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson, Mike, split it right down the middle. 11 attempts for each, 54 yards for Algier, 52 for Cordell Patterson. They're pretty. I mean, Cordell Patterson did see 5 targets, which was nice to see today, Mike. That was a little bit of a change of pace because he hasn't been seeing those, catching 3 of them. Drake London disappointed. Zacchaeus was the only person in pass catcher who was really good today. But my biggest takeaway here, unless Patterson keeps seeing this passing work, I think both of these guys are just eating away at both of their fantasy values, and I don't really want to start Algier or Cordero Patterson in this offense, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, they run the ball enough, and they're committed to running the ball enough. You might be able to get away with it on some weeks, but this was not one of those weeks.
Well they got to score. You know, if you're one of them's got to score. So.
I mean, it's been happening with the Lions. You're getting Swift and Jamal Williams to do it. So, I mean, a little bit better of an offense, but it is possible. That's just my only thing. But we'll move on here to our next game, and I know you had fun watching this game. The New York Jets had the visiting Chicago Bears coming to town, and they beat up on them 31-10. Let's be honest, guys. This was a matchup of the backups, Mike White versus Trevor Siemian and Nathan Peterman at one point. Then back to Trevor Siemian as the starter. Basically, long story short is, for the Bears, there wasn't a whole much to talk about here. David Montgomery, really the story of the day, getting 14.3 fantasy points. Not scoring, just, accumulating a bunch of yards, 3 catches off 4 targets. And then other than that, the big news was Darnell Mooney suffering what looks like a season-ending injury. I did not get the details exactly what it is. I just saw it was season-ending, so that's very unfortunate.
Ligaments in his ankle might be torn, so.
Ouch.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to more of a lightning note here with the Jets. I mean, Mike White came in and he showed the Jets how the quarterback position is supposed to be ran. Getting 24.8 fantasy points if you started him this week. Super flex, I know I did. But, I mean, on the ground, there was really nothing to speak of here for the Jets. I mean, Michael Carter went down with an injury and didn't return after that, really only getting 3.6 fantasy points. He had Tyler Johnson hitting the end zone, getting 13.8 fantasy points, but, I mean, only 62 yards. But the big story here, and what we all wanted to see, was Garrett Wilson. 5 receptions on 8 targets, 95 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And 54 of those 95 yards was 1 touchdown. So he finished with 26.4. My biggest takeaway here is, without Zach Wilson at quarterback, we have a passing option for the Jets, and his name is Garrett Wilson.
Yes, sir. And the passing offense is much better in general with Mike White.
I don't want to, understate. Elijah Moore did get his first touchdown of the year, but only 2 receptions.
Yep. Jumping into our next game, guys, it was a rematch of the AFC divisional game last year. We had Cincinnati beating Tennessee once again, 20-16. Joe Burrow throws 1 touchdown, 18 fantasy points, so he had a decent day. But Mike, the chalk hit here. Samaje Perine, 17 attempts for 58 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. He also saw 7 targets, catching 4 of them for 19 PPR points, so it hit today. T. Higgins, he's awesome, like always, catching a touchdown, 25 PPR points, just about. Hayden Hurst also saw 9 targets, so he's still alive in that tight end wasteland that we got going on over there. But once again, Tyler Boyd disappoints, so he belongs on your bench for now. He deserves it. Maybe Jamar Chase might be back next week, too. So Tyler Boyd, back-to-back weeks, he disappointed, and it was a good matchup for him this week. So very disappointing. Tannehill, 12.5 fantasy points on the Titans side of it. Derrick Henry shut down again, man. He did catch a screen pass and took it like 70 yards, then fumbled, and then Treylon Burks recovered it and scored his first career touchdown. I mean, that was kind of cool, but not cool if you were a Derrick Henry owner. But he still finished with 14 PPR points, you know, because he had 120 yards total. So it was still okay day for him.
Most of those yards came on that fumble.
Yep. And then Treylon Burks, 4 receptions for 70 yards. He did catch a bomb, too. That was nice, 17 PPR points. But that's pretty much it for the Titans. My biggest takeaway here is if the concussion puts Mixon out next week again, man, P. Ryan's a must start. He saw 7 targets, Mike. He saw 17 carries. But if Mixon comes back, he just goes back to being a handcuff, and in a pinch, you can start him, I guess, as just the PPR back. And then on the Titan side of things, Treylon Burks. It's nice. 6 targets is nice to see. You're probably not going to get much more than that because they just don't throw it a lot. But he's startable in the flex if you need to now.
Yeah, absolutely. And on to our next game here. We had the Houston Texans visiting the Miami Dolphins, and let's be honest, guys, this was not a game. They benched Tua after the third quarter. They basically conceded in the third quarter, guys. Miami just dominated here through and throughout. Tua had a good day, just 1 touchdown, 299 yards, 16 fantasy points. Jeff Wilson hit pay dirt with a touchdown, but he did leave the game injured. He had 11.2 fantasy points. And then you had the rare appearance from Myles Gaskin, activated because of the Raheem Mostert injury. Probably won't see him again. And then Jalen Waddle getting 10 targets here, catching 5 of them for 85, getting 13.5 fantasy points. And then Tyreek Hill getting 15 fantasy points with 85 yards on 6 catches. I mean, that was pretty much it. You did get a touchdown from Durham Smythe, but that was his only catch of the day. Moving on to this abysmal Texans offense, and they take it from me, Lovie Smith. Don't be starting Kyle Allen anymore. You know what you got in him. Let's see what we got in Davis Mills some more. I mean, give him a fighting chance. Because Kyle Allen, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Not very good. Not even worth mentioning fantasy-wise. And then Dario Gumbawale got the vulture touchdown here, unfortunately taking it away from Dameon Pierce. And he was the leading scorer on the ground for the Texans at 8. And then, believe it or not, Jordan Akins was the leading receiver for the Houston Texans, 5 for 61, getting a touchdown, 15.1 fantasy points. Other than that, it was just Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins just getting some yards. 11.1 for Brandon Cooks, 10.4 for Nico Collins. So, biggest takeaway here is, man, Dolphins, my only thing here is if they smash teams like this, it's really bad for fantasy because you're not getting all 4 quarters of your guys here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Other than that, they're phenomenal. Houston, God, play Davis Mills, please. It makes everything better. I know Dameon Pierce is going through a rough patch here, guys, but if they put Davis Mills in, there's a better chance he gets back on track.
Agreed. Next game we got here is the Carolina Panthers beating Denver. They're just awful, man. 23-10. Sam Darnold, 1 touchdown, 16 fantasy points. Deonta Foreman bounced back week after a couple clunkers. Finished it with 11 PPR points, so he was solid. DJ Moore catching a touchdown as well, 20 PPR points. We said, Mike, on the Friday show that DJ Moore does get a slight uptick with Sam Darnold at quarterback, and he saw 6 targets today, and he made the most of them, like 103 yards, so that was good to see, and maybe he's relevant down the stretch. But excuse me. But this Broncos offense, it's not good. You can start Cortland Sutton with Jerry Jeudy out. That's it. That's the only time you're starting him anymore. Latavius Murray was solid today, 92 yards. He finished with 10.8 PPR points, but even that's not great. Thought he was going to be much better. But that's really it. Not good. Just not good from this offense, man. And from the Panthers side of it, yeah, it's pretty much DJ Moore and Deonta Foreman is matchup dependent. If they're going to be in the game, he's fine. If they're not going to be in the game, he's not good. It's honestly as simple as that for me.
Yeah, I mean,
next one, Mike.
Yep, on to the next one here. We had the Cleveland Browns taking on Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Cleveland Browns came out on top, 23-17. Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper. That was pretty much it here. Nick Chubb, 19.2 fantasy points, hitting pay dirt with the tutty, 116 yards, and then Amari Cooper catching 7 of his 12 targets for 94 yards. No touchdown, but 16.4 fantasy points. Joku, for those tight end wastelanders, had 5 for 29 with a touchdown, finishing 13.9. We love that. But then moving on to the Buccaneers here, I mean, really, it was pretty much Rashad White and Chris Godwin all day.
Yep.
Chris Godwin had 12 for 13 for 110 yards, touchdown, finishing with 29 fantasy points. And then Rashad White had 64 yards on the ground, but also caught all 9 of his targets for 45 yards. 19.9 fantasy points. Just insane there. Biggest takeaway is Rashad White's absolutely plug and play with Leonard Fournette out. And then Browns, I mean Amari Cooper, Joku, and Chubb. I love starting all 3 of them, and I'm curious to see how it is moving forward with Deshaun Watson.
Should even be better, man. It really should be. The next game we got here, the Jacksonville Jaguars pulled the upset over the Baltimore Ravens, 28-27, Mike. Started with the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence leads the game-winning drive down at the end. He throws 3 touchdowns. Big fantasy day for him, 22 fantasy points. Unfortunately, this was near and dear to my heart. ETN goes down with a foot injury. I don't know if it's the same foot that he injured last year, but he was on the sideline. He had his helmet on at times, but he never came back in the game, and that was early in the first half. It was Jermichael Hasty scoring the touchdown in the backfield for 20.5 PPR points. We had Zay Jones leading all receivers today with 11 receptions, 145 yards, 25 PPR points. Christian Kirk was a little disappointed, 8 PPR points. Jamal Swagnew, Marvin Jones each added in a touchdown as well, but you're not starting those guys anywhere. Lamar, go ahead.
Don't forget about that important 2-point conversion Zay Jones had to take the lead at the end. That's all I wanted to add.
It was nasty. Lamar Jackson, rough day a little bit, but not for fantasy purposes. He still finished with 21 fantasy points, but he could have had a better day. 16-32 only, but he did add 89 yards on the ground as well. Gus Edwards found himself into the end zone. Also had a crucial fumble in the second half, man. That was not ideal, which caused him to only have 9 PPR points. And you had Josh Oliver catching the touchdown from Lamar. And that's really about it. Andrews disappointed and dropped another crucial touchdown. Man, it's like, excuse me. What are you doing, Andrews? It looked like he batted the ball up in the air. I honestly couldn't believe it.
He had stone hands in that moment.
Yeah, he really did. Unfortunately, DeMarcus Robinson was not good today. And my biggest takeaway here is Travis Etienne. You just got to pay attention to that injury. Trevor Lawrence is also a streamer, man, the way he's playing and moving forward.
I know, against that tough defense. Who'd have thought that?
And it was nice to see Gus Edwards get 16 attempts. Just don't fumble next time, guy.
Please and thank you. All right, on to the only other game here that won on another 2-point conversion. We had the Los Angeles Chargers going into Arizona, beating them 25-24 on that last-second 2-point conversion. Justin Herbert is back, boys. I mean, granted, it's the Arizona Cardinals. They allow points to everybody like Oprah, just giving everybody points. But Herbert had 3 touchdowns, 274 on the through the air, 26.8 fantasy points. He also had a 38 on the ground, which we like to see. But really, the story of the day was Austin Eckler for the Chargers. Only getting 20 on the ground, but man, 15 targets, catching 11 of them for 60 yards and the game-tying touchdown, finishing with 25 fantasy points. He also had DeAndre Carter surprisingly getting 10 targets in there, catching 7 of them for 73 and another touchdown, 20.3. But then on to the Cardinals here. Kyler Murray, another bad day at the office, NFL-wise, but fantasy-wise, just like Lamar, 26.2 fantasy points. So, I mean, he's serviceable, just doesn't look great, NFL-wise. But James Conner, 120 yards on the ground, most since 2019 I saw. Can you believe that? I mean, he finished with 21 PPR fantasy points. Yeah, I mean, he caught 3, and this is where he got his touchdown, was through the air, 3 for 20. D-Hop was the other one to catch a touchdown, 4 for 87, finishing with 18.7. Marquise Brown, we knew was on that snap count, only finished with 10 points. My biggest takeaway here is, I mean, I'm loving the matchups here moving for Herbert, so I think he's back. We're not, afraid of him anymore. And then the Cardinals, man, we're going into the bye week here, so we're going to have to find replacements. But after that, I like Connor, Hopkins. I do like Brown. Murray, I'm a little skeptical on, but you can get away with fantasy.
Real quick, did you hear what Kyler said after the game on his post game? We were fucked schematically. Just something to keep an eye on. Yeah. The Kansas City Chiefs guys took care of business against the banged up Rams team 26-10. Started with the Chiefs side of things. Mahomes was okay, 19 fantasy points. Pacheco with the 22 attempts for 1 touchdown. We did kind of think that he was going to see a ton of volume this week with them probably hammering the Rams like they did. But if you started him, it was good on you. 15.5 fantasy points. Travis Kelce catches a touchdown, just a stud every week. 15.7 PPR points. Juju and MVS, pretty quiet days, 9 and 6 points. That's really it. Jumping over to the Rams side of things, it was Perkins at the quarterback. Bryce Perkins, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Not good. Cam Akers, not his job apparently. Kyron Williams outtouched him 11 attempts to 8. Van Jefferson catches the lone touchdown. If you started him in a pinch, you were okay with 11.9 PPR points. But the biggest news from the Rams side of it is Allen Robinson done for the season. It sounds like he, I forget what McVay said, is an ankle injury or something.
Yeah, it's going to require
foot
surgery.
Injury. Yeah. But yeah, really not anything really to take away from it. Pacheco is just the lead guy. He's the grinder. If the Chiefs are going to be leading, he's going to be the guy to he's going to get the ball down the stretch. McKinnon did see 6 targets, though. So PPR, he is still relevant, and I probably deserves to be rostered just because he's on the Chiefs offense.
And we even got an appearance from Rojo.
Let's go. Ronald Jones. Shout out John Lepresto.
I was just going to say Lepresto. I bet he loves that. All right, on to the next game here, and we had just a thriller in the Bay. San Francisco took down the New Orleans Saints 13-0. Yep, they shut them out. I mean, this is what you get when you get Andy Dalton starting as your quarterback. You get 10.3 fantasy points and only 204 yards passing. All right. On the ground, Alvin Kamara was not very good, and I did suggest to sit him this morning, and I'm glad I did.
Yep.
In the one leg I had. Only 13 yards on the ground. Actually left injured, unfortunately, but he did get 6 receptions, 37 yards on that. Only 7 points on the day, but really the highest scoring guy for this Chris Olave, catching 5 of his 9 targets for 62 yards, 11.2 on the day for fantasy wise. But moving on to the Niners, Jimmy Garoppolo, 1 touchdown, 13.3 fantasy points. If you had to start him in a pinch, he was all right. Christian McCaffrey, 11 for 32. Man, really not using him as much as we thought he would. But he did get 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 17, only finished with 8.9 fantasy points. That means that's disappointing for C-Mac. Really, it was a disappointing all-in-all day because Ayuk was really the only consistent one, 65 yards, 11.5 fantasy points. And then Juwan Jennings was the lone guy to get the touchdown off of an insane tip pass off of
it was
Tyrann Mathieu. So it was all in all just a weird game. I don't know if we can really my biggest takeaway here is I don't know if we can really take everything from this game and apply it to next week and moving forward, because this was one of those odd games where nothing worked, honestly, either way for the offenses.
Yeah, and I want to say Elijah Mitchell got injured, yes. Right? Yep.
Yeah, he did, and it did look like an MCL sprain, I think it was what I saw.
Yeah, keep an eye on that. So it might be McCaffrey and Terry Davis-Price moving forward.
Jordan Mason.
Jordan Mason, right on. Last game that we're going to talk about, we got the Raiders going into Seattle and winning, Mike. We thought the Raiders might be dead, but they went in overtime in a shootout. 40-34. Derek Carr, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 22 fantasy points. Good day, but the story here, in this Raiders offense is Josh Jacobs breaking the fantasy slate today. 33 attempts, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. Saw 7 targets, catching 6 of them for 74 yards and 48 PPR points, man.
303 total yards.
I'm glad I was in on Josh Jacobs this offseason in a few spots. Devontae Adams also had a good day. Caught 7 of his 11 targets for 74.
And one insane one-handed catch where he was getting
nasty.
interfered with. Just stupid, but go on.
Yep. Foster Moreau catches a touchdown. Also see 7 targets, which is nice to see in that tight end wasteland. Catches a touchdown for 12 PPR points. Jumping over to the Seahawks side of things, Geno throws 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 20 fantasy points. Another solid day at the office for Geno Smith. Ken Walker finds the end zone 2 times on the ground. Wasn't efficient, 14 for 26. He finished with 16.9 PPR points. And then both wide receivers, good days if you started them. DK whopping 15 targets, catching 11 of them for 90 yards. Didn't find the end zone. 20 PPR points. Tyler Lockett does find the end zone, catching 3 of his 7 targets for 68 yards and a touchdown. And Travis Homer catches the other touchdown.
What a little vulture.
But my biggest takeaway is Josh Jacobs, 5th, 6th round league winner this year, man. He looks, all of a sudden, he looks really good. It
looks like he's fighting for a contract.
Like they're using him to like run routes out of the backfield, and they're hitting him on like the curl flats and, you know, routes in the middle of the field. It's like they never used him like that before, and then Josh McDaniels just seems to be unlocking him. So I'm kind of curious to see what kind of contract he gets this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely inflating that with these numbers he's getting.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, guys, that wraps it up. That's the last game we're going to talk about. Let me get the score of the Packers-Philly game. It's 34-23 in the 4th quarter. Philadelphia leads that one. But if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel. We appreciate it. Head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans and sign up for our memberships. And then our next video that's coming out would be the Fantasy Edge with Richard Seville and Dennis Sosik. And then you can catch Herm's Waiver Wire show that'll come out Tuesday morning for everybody. It's
gonna need to check that out going on playoffs.
Yes, we're heading into fantasy playoffs and it's crunch time. But for Mike,
Major
I'm Dylan.
injuries, too.
For Mike, I'm Dylan. We'll talk to you guys next week.